Welcome. This is Average Joe Rock and Roll. I am Michael J. Rock, and I'm here with Shane today on the virtual couch. How you doing, Shane?
Very good, Mike. How you doing?
Excellent, excellent. Welcome to the first virtual couch. I did kind of an intro on the on one podcast, just to kind of introduce the show a little bit. So this is the first virtual couch. I don't want to call people guests because we're both kind of hanging out, and I don't really want it to be a host guest thing. I just want it to be a conversation. So what are you excited about? What are you listening to? What are you doing?
Well, um, actually today I'm recovering. Actually, I played a gig out at J Peak last night, J Peak Resort, which was pretty cool. And I guess to open of what I'm excited about coming from the guy who plays is I'm just kind of refinding this person inside myself. For the listeners, I guess I'll a little inside baseball. I quit drinking a little over a year ago, and that was a big part of music for me. Was just there was always drinks, and I guess I thought I was going to drink my way right into success, but I found out that I'm not Burt Kreischer, so that's not going to happen. And and you just kind of think things are going to happen or whatever it is, and it doesn't. And so and then after having a kid and kind of leaning into being a dad for the past decade and everything, for me it's finding the thing that before booze and before drugs, and what excited me, and it was music, and it was to be completely honest, it's the live audience, it's the crowd reaction. It was the Home Sweet Home video when I was a little kid. It was when I saw that sea of people. I mean, it gives me goosebumps and almost puts a lump in my throat talking about it. That's what, like, it freaks me out. It's almost like it puts an emotion that I don't even know what box to put it in, because it's like so emotional. You're like, how am I getting so pumped up about this? And but yeah, I'm like, feel like I'm gonna cry. Like I'm not sad though. I'm super excited, and so kind of leaning into that is doing it again for me. And I'll find the one person in the room, because every gig's a little different. Some are outdoors, some are swinging doors. So, the people that are there for the first set are gone by the second. So you kind of have a different dynamic with your group and how you interact with them. And so there's always one person listening, and they're the ones that are excited about music. And it's kind of my job as the entertainer to help them enjoy that excitement. So it's that back and forth of energy that I feed off, and that kind of pumps me up. So I
Yeah,
guess
that's
today that's
awesome.
what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Good for you on a year. Um, do you find that your stylistic approach is a little different, drinking versus non-drinking? Or do you?
Uh, Absolutely. You know, when I was younger, I guess I don't know what it was, but when you're surrounded by people that are always telling you, man, you're pretty good and shit like that. And like, you come from a small town and there's not much going on, and people, people pump you up, but they're your people, and um beneath the booze, you just kind of think like, maybe I'm just gonna get discovered. Like, I don't have to work at this because I'm me, right? I'm the guy. And so it's kind of fucking bizarre. But to look at it now, where it's very much work to me. I don't want to work a regular job. And as I'm lining up gigs, and I'm like, I'm treating it more like a job than a hobby. Um, you're paying me to be there versus you're lucky to have me. I guess, I don't know. I never felt like I was an arrogant guy, but looking back in my past, underneath the alcohol, I know I presented myself like that sometimes, and that it's kind of embarrassing. And I'm kind of like re uh doing it, I guess, for that matter, as I'm kind of, people are kind of thinking, oh, I know that guy. I remember that guy. But then they see me now and they're like, oh, it's different. He's different. It's different. You know, when you hire me now, it's, you know, yeah, I just try to be super professional and you're paying me, you know, so yeah, it's a lot different without drinking for sure.
This journey that you're on and where you're at now, you talked about the Motley Crue Home Sweet Home video, the Sea Heads. Um, what kind of propelled you to do what you do today, and what brought you to where you're at? And obviously, you're still a big music fan. So what's exciting you these days?
Um, boy, I got to dig a little because I'm getting introduced to a bunch of new stuff. I wouldn't say, okay, leaning back into Motley Crue, the childhood excitement thing for me was those bands, and I was super into like that 80s heavy thing, right? And then as time went on, it was different singer songwriters. It was a Neil Young at one point or whatever. And I haven't rediscovered a lot of new music. I've rediscovered some older stuff. I leaned into Peter Green pretty heavy. Um, some things like that. But what I'm excited about, dude, and I don't care what anybody says, but the Greta Van Fleets and the Dirty Honeys and Wolfgang Van Halen, dude, is great.
You can throw Aaron Jones into that mix too. I don't know if you've checked out
I
Aaron.
haven't, I haven't.
Boy, I'll tell you, he is phenomenal. You should check him
I
out.
will, I will.
Two full-length albums. Unbelievable, this guy. He's somebody that's being plugged quite a bit, like on Octane on Sirius XM.
Okay.
Trunk has plugged him a little bit, but from that first time I heard this guy in the first album, I'm hooked. So check him, throw him
I
right
will.
next. Yeah.
When I see these kids and like, I'm sure that's how, when I go out and I play, and since I was in my early 20s, when I would do some Neil Young something, and one of your parents' friends is like, whoa, that they're like, these younger kids are into that stuff. When I see these younger guys just leaning into, look, this is what we sound like, and we're just gonna do it, and we put on a good show, and I love the tongue-in-cheek rock and roll. For me, that's it's music I can jam to and I can listen to, and I don't feel like I'm picking it apart as the musician. I'm not listening to their musicianship. I'm listening to the song and I'm rocking out. And it's a very hard thing for me to do, to listen to things at face value, because I'm listening to the lyrics of the song, or I'm listening to just the drummer because it's a great drum part, or I fancy the drummer. I can listen to the Red Hot Chili Peppers all day long and almost never hear a word because I love Chad Smith's drumming, and I just listen to his drum kit. I love the way it sounds. I love the way it hits, and I can just listen to it all day long without even listening to the rest of the songs. It's kind of weird. So when I listen to these bands and like Dirty Honey, this kid sounds like Tom Kiefer from Cinderella. I just it pumps me up to hear these kids wanting to grow their hair out and scream like that. I love it.
Sure, it's kind of that that confirmation that rock is not dead. There's been a lot of talk the last couple of years that rock's dead and all that, and there are up and comers that are proving that theory wrong. And those bands that you mentioned are phenomenal, and they're young.
They are young.
There's another band too called Plush. I don't know if you've heard them.
No.
It's an all-female band. The lead singer is, I believe her name is Mariah Formica, and this young lady can belt out anything that she sets her mind to. She does. And Wilson covers. I mean, she nails it. And they do a cover of Crazy on You, and she plays the guitar, so she does the Nancy Wilson guitar parts, but then she sings.
Oh,
So
wow.
Nancy and Ann all in one. Yeah.
Cool.
So check them out too. So we talked a little bit offline, and you were talking about this Dave Matthews video that you absolutely love and absolutely pumps you up and throw some emotions into. You want to talk about that a little bit?
For sure. It was the 2003 Central Park show. Also, just to give the background, I was not a Dave Matthews fan at this point when I discovered this concert. A friend of mine gave it to me because I was a Neil Young fan, And in that concert, they do Cortez the Killer by Neil Young, which was a song that I was playing because I was a newbie at playing guitar. It was a 3-chord Neil Young song, and it wasn't Old Man or Helplessly Hoping or one of the other ones that everybody would do, you know? And it was dark, and I thought that was cool. So I thought Neil had a little bit of heavy metal in him back in the day, you know what I mean? But anyway, so Warren Haynes comes out and plays Cortez the Killer. So I never knew who Warren Haynes was. So now I'm meeting Dave Matthews and I'm meeting Warren Haynes in this environment that is not on the radio, Crash Into Me or whatever. And I'm watching the band, and they film it really well. The band is excited the whole time. They look at each other, they smile, they interact. There's so much improv, but it's choreographed. You know, each guy has his part, but his part isn't 100% written. You know, a lot of that stuff, they've gone over the licks and the things like this and whatever, but then they go out there and they have their thing. And so I'm kind of watching the concert, and then it gets to Jimmy Thing, which is on the album is track 16. And
highly underrated song.
oh,
Probably,
it's
probably the best track on that album.
absolutely, it's
Yeah.
and the but if you listen to the song or watch other live performances now, for me, there is no other one than the one from Central Park. There's no other. And how lucky that they were to capture what they captured post 9/11, Central Park, the whole thing. But when they're doing their improv stuff, it's, you know, Warren is so tasty with the way that he joins the Dave Matthews Band, because as soon as I'm kind of discovering this album, I'm looking at Warren at the same time, and he's like this blues guitar player that, you know, played with Allman Brothers and Government Mule and the thing, and I'm like figuring this guy out, and I'm like, where does that fit with Dave Matthews? Because to me, that's like preppy college date rapey. Yeah, I don't know what it was. You know, it wasn't for me though. And so when I saw them join forces, it was like unbelievable. And the band trades off their little spotlight, and he calls out the band and he says their name. And that was something that stuck with me also, that I do to this day, which I'm playing solo right now. But I always will drill the names of the players I'm with into the people's heads, because they're the band, you know. And if it wasn't for them, then you would just be a guy up there with a guitar. So when it gets to Dave Matthews' part, and he does this kind of scat piece, it's, which I didn't really get to understand how cool that felt till later, playing with a friend who was a drummer who was very oriented with the guitar and the singer, and he was very into all the nuances that you would do. So watching Dave do his improv and watching his body language, and then you listen to Carter Beauford on the drums, and he's watching Dave, and now he's all the little scat things that Dave's doing, Carter's accenting on the drums. And then this isn't practiced, because you can't practice that. And you couldn't, I mean, it's impossible to do it that perfect. And so he gets to this thing, and then they have to know how to get out of these things. So you have to wait for the measure to come around. You're waiting for the time to come around, another 4 bars or whatever it is. And he'll give a look over his shoulder like we're coming out. And he gets to this one point where he'd kind of done his whole scat piece. And then he kind of he goes, and when he does that, it clicks, like Carter knows we're coming out. He's repeating this phrase. This is him finishing up his drum solo, you know, so to speak. And then they just explode, and over the audio of the band, when they come out of that scat and the band breaks back in full force, over the audio of the band, you hear the audience roar, and it chokes me up every friggin' time, every time.
I got a chance to watch that video, and I know exactly what you're talking about. If you know anybody hears this, you know, they want to see something really cool, watch the video. You know, as you mentioned, it was after 9/11, and you know, they called out, you know, first responders. You
Yeah.
know, highlighted that, and kind of an emotional thing. I will say that, I at one point in time I was kind of a Dave Matthews fan, not so much anymore. That album that the Jimmy thing is on, Under the Table and Dreaming. I listened to that record a lot. I like that record a lot. Kind of got lost after that with them. But they're super, super talented. And I saw an interview one time with Dave Matthews, and they have a very unique sound. There's nobody that sounds like them.
That's right.
And he said, there's so many players in that band. They're from South Africa. There's so many players in that band that all come from, there's I don't know, probably 8 or 9 members in that band, and each one of those members has a different musical upbringing. So you take
Right.
8, 9 guys and you pull them together, all with different musical backgrounds, and they start writing, and you get the Dave Matthews Band. And that's one of the reasons why they don't sound like anybody, because of all these, South African, different genres, different styles, put it together, and it pukes up Dave Matthews Band. So very
And I'll say to anybody who you never, and I've always steered clear of knowing too much about the people I love or idolize, or I never wanted to meet anybody because I'm afraid that I don't want to stand in line to have you be like, hey man, whatever, just take your picture and get the fuck out of here. Like I don't want to feel that, like because I want to have the magic. And I did get to meet Dave, and he was super gracious.
awesome. Yeah.
I was actually behind the meat counter, and he came in with a mask on with his mom, I'm guessing, because US they're based out of Charlottesville, Virginia. So when they come home, that's where they are, and that's where I was working. And he came in, and he was he was taller than I thought he was. Then he looks on TV or whatever. And I just recognized his voice. He asked for a couple links of chorizo, and I said, "Oh shit, that was Dave,"
Yeah.
And I just kind of watched him walk around the store, and I was like, oh man, I just want to say something, because in the beginning of the pandemic, when everything was real quiet, Carter, the drummer, he was coming in all the time because they weren't playing at all.
Yeah.
And every time he'd walk in the store, I'd lean into whoever I was with. I'd be like, you're standing in the same room as one of the best drummers to ever do it, like ever do it. And he was super nice, and I'd see him interact with people, and I just couldn't get the gumption to be like, hey man, I just want to say thanks, like fuck man, And so Dave gets his sausage, I don't say anything, I'm a chicken shit. Next day I'm back in the meat room, I'm just cleaning or something, and he goes walking by again, and this time he's walking by, he sees me, and he's got his little eyebrow thing, and he just kind of head nods me. And I said, oh shit, because he knew I recognized him after he talked.
Yeah.
And so now I'm like, all right, fuck it, man. This guy is mega famous. He knows people approach him. He wouldn't be in public if he couldn't deal with it. But I have to say thank you, because there were some very inspirational things that I took to the stage with me that I learned from him and by watching him. And so I, like a creep, I waited out the door, and he kind of comes walking out, and I said, hey man. And he just turns and he pulls his mask down, and he didn't even say, he just puts his hand out. He's like, how's it going, dude? And I was like, I didn't want to bother. He's like, nah. And we had an exchange. I actually think I garbled out something about the Warren Haynes thing and just whatever, but he was super gracious about it. And then 2 days later, Carter came in, and I did the same. Finally, I was like, hey man. He was like, oh dude, he was super cool. He always walks around with his golf gloves on and shit.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, he wears them everywhere.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
I completely hear you on all of that. Over the years, I've had a chance to meet several different artists and celebrities and things like that. And there is kind of a buildup in your mind, if you ever met that person, what it would look like. And
Right.
it's let down because it's a brief interaction.
Right.
You walk away, you're like, oh, I should have told them this, or I should have told them that. And the reality is they could give a shit less, right? I mean,
That's right.
they're gracious and they're nice, and most of them are pretty decent, and and they listen to your stories and they listen to whatever, but they hear that a million times,
That's right.
once in a lifetime thing for you. And it's it's just one of the many for them. I remember hearing Lizzie Hale talk about opening up for Ronnie James Dio, and at the end of the evening, she went to his trailer to thank him for giving her that opportunity. And she went to his trailer, and he said, you're young, you're ambitious, you're excited. He goes, I need to tell you something. She said, what's that? And he points out of the trailer window and he says, "See all those fans out there?" She said, "Yep." He goes, "You're never going to remember any of those fans out there, but every one of them are going to remember you. Carry yourself that way."
That's right.
Oh,
That's right.
so true. But I met, like I said, several people over the years and had several interactions, and there's always that feeling when you walk away. Um, you know, my wife and I recently were in the Orlando airport, and we were on our way back from the Monsters of Rock cruise, and there was a guy sitting there, and he started talking with us about the cruise, and it turns out that the guy that was talking to us about the cruise was one of the musicians, Jimmy Bell. And
Cool.
I didn't know who Jimmy Bell was. And I kind of embarrassed about that, because the reality is that I should have known who he was because of my vast knowledge of that type of music and knowing the stories behind everything that happens. He was the guy that got beat out by Zach Wild for Ozzy's gig, and
Oh
then
wow. Yeah.
the Butler took him into his band because he liked what he heard. So the guy's like, and I've checked out his videos, and he's super gracious. He's super talented. He's a shredder. He told me that if I wanted to go to one of his shows, he'd put me on the guest list. I mean, just super, super nice guy. But interestingly enough, we talked to him for over an hour, and it was like the rock geek's dream, right? Like, there's this
Right.
guy that's got this history, and he's chatting to me like I'm a normal person.
Right.
Wasn't nervous or anything like that. It was just a great exchange, and we talked. My wife and I and him, we talked for over an hour. And I think when it was kind of embarrassing when we first started talking, because he's like, "Oh," he goes, "I'm the guitar player in Autograph." And then he's like, "Did you see Autograph?" We're like, no, actually, we didn't." And he's like, "Oh, okay." He said, "Well, I also did this thing called, Rare Hair. It was a jam. Did you see that?" No, we didn't see that either. The crazy thing is that, and he, I don't know if he was just being gracious, or if it actually benefited us that we didn't know who he was or hadn't seen him, because then we just started talking like normal people.
Right.
That barrier was broken down, and I think that barrier was broken down because all of a sudden he's like, "Oh," he goes, "they're not here because they're smothering me. They're here because they're waiting for a plane. I'm waiting for a plane. We're gonna chat."
Right.
That type
They're people.
Right, they're people, right? So, but like I said, and then he told me some things to listen to. He's in a project called Demons Down. Listen to that. That's really good. That's new, brand new. Um, kind of prog rocky, but very good, very talented, very fast guitars. He told me about the first band he was in called Join Forces. I've checked them out. They're awesome. They're like, if you listen to any of that Join Forces stuff, that early stuff, there's so many songs in that Join Forces that you can tell is like they wanted to be Van Halen. Like,
Oh yeah.
so Van Halen, but it's so good. Those songs are great. But anyway, so like I said, there's always these moments that you run into these people and you talk to these people, and you never get to have that type of experience. And I don't know if I'll ever have that experience again, because that's kind
Right.
of a lifetime thing. Because and that's one of those moments where you walk away feeling satisfied and not feeling like, "Oh man, I wish I'd said this," or he was kind of short with me, or whatever
Right.
the thought is when you're walking away.
Of course. Yeah. 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 No, that's there's nothing worse than hearing, these people turn out to be bummers. To be completely honest, I hang on to the crew as a long lifer, because of my childhood, because it was such a thing. But as I grew up, it's so funny that the more years before the Dirt movie, when the Dirt book, when that came out before I'd moved to New York, like 10 years ago or something. And when the book came out, I read it, and they couldn't even touch the book with the movie. I mean, they just couldn't even touch it. And by the time I got done that book, Mike, I hated them. I was like, these guys are scumbags. I was like, this is what I wanted to be. And with makeup on. I mean, and it just kind of blew my mind to see, like, wait, I guess I just wanted to see the audience. I did all that other stuff I didn't really want. And then we went and saw them in 2009 in Manchester. And it was, it was what it was. the band played or whatever, and it was Vince, but the camaraderie amongst the audience is why you go to those things, because it is a brotherhood. When you walk in there, everybody's your brother, man. Every stranger I'd run into getting a beer, we were hugging, high-fiving, heck yeah, type of thing. But Nikki came out, he was talking to the audience or whatever, and he was like, just, thank you guys for, all these years. And we're like, yeah, and I was so jammed, dude. And then he's like, oh, you ladies out there, thanks for giving us so much, tail over the years and whatever. And then he's like, and then all you guys out there, he's like, thanks for letting us fuck your wives for all those years. And I was like, ugh. I was like, I'm glad my wife wasn't around, but damn, that kind of hurt, dude. I didn't like, I don't want to buy your album after that. Like, it just hurt me, dude. I was like, man, I idolized you guys, man.
Yeah, there's, they were the band of debauchery for sure.
Yeah. Hey, they leaned into it. Can't
Had the
take it away.
Heroin Diaries. Heroin Diaries is a page turner, and
I loved it.
all the things in his life that weren't quite right, and it's pretty messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I read it twice.
you mentioned something that got me thinking. You mentioned how, you're at this show, and everybody's happy and everybody's excited and they're high-fiving and they're hugging and they're this and they're that. And you know, I've been to, I can't even tell you how many shows over the years, tons of shows. And you look around the room when you're in these shows and you're like, okay, so everybody in here's comes from a different background. Everybody in here has a different view on whatever, you name it, whether it's politics, whatever. Um, but this one thing brings everybody together in this space. And that's the one thing that everybody in this moment can agree on. Whereas
right.
you put the lights up, get the band off the stage, and everybody's just hanging out, there's probably going to be some fist fights.
Right.
But lights come down, band's on, everybody's united. So music definitely does that for people.
And as a performer, the funny thing is like and it's exactly the same with comedy. When everybody shows up to that concert or shows up to that comedy club, and we're all in on it. Once the lights go down, we're all here for the same reason. I'm here to play and give you my energy, and you're there to listen to me and give you and give me your energy. But when you're just the guy that's gigging, you have to, the first half of your first set is just trying to get these people on the same page, because they were just eating dinner and you showed up, and like, that's a challenging thing. And I strive for that, being able to just walk out and be like, oh, you guys were in this with me. Oh, that'd be cool. That'd be neat to see. Yeah, it's a lot of work sometimes.
Yeah, no. So we're slowly running out of time here. Getting towards the end. Is there anything you wanted to discuss? We got about 5 minutes left before I'm going to get cut off here.
Not really. I think this is great, and I'm excited that you wanted to start doing something like this. I'll probably send you an email with a few different people that I think might want to have this conversation with you.
Fantastic. Obviously, love to have you back on again and chat some more. Obviously we could chat for hours. So it was great. It was a great first run through, I think.
For sure.
It's my whole idea behind this podcast and behind doing this was to unite people who really get excited, like we kind of talked about in the beginning, where it's just not somebody that knows that they like that song.
Right.
That knows that they like that song because it's on that album, and these are the players, and and these players in this band, played in these other groups, and know the 3 degrees of separation. So
yeah,
super excited to do more of these. I again appreciate you being my guinea pig, because this is the first one, and I wanted it to go as smoothly as it could, and I think it went pretty smoothly.
I'd say so.
Yeah. So again, thank you, Shane. Thanks for joining me on the virtual couch.
Mind if I just plug my website real quick?
Absolutely. Go for it.
You guys can check me out at shanegoodwin.com. Last year, I was fortunate enough to get out to Nashville and record 5 songs. They're on Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, or wherever you get your downloads. But you can just go to shanegoodwin.com, follow the links. Shane Goodwin Music on Facebook. If you're in the Vermont region and you're just curious as to what little place I might be playing, you can check out all my dates there, and also shanegoodwin.com. Appreciate it, Mike.
And also, since you brought all that up, you are also on all of the major platforms, right? Apple
That's
Music,
right. Yep, everywhere. Yep.
Spotify, Napster, so people can check you out. We got about 3 minutes left, and I'm gonna talk for a minute before we cut out. About your recording and all that, because I'm familiar with all of that, and you are a talented dude. You're a good songwriter. You put together some really great tunes. You do it acoustically, so you took that to Nashville, and you had a band, and you took these songs and you made them bigger, and they sound great. I've listened to everything you got out there, and anybody that's and you have kind of a unique style, because I don't know as if you could really drop you into any genre. I mean,
Right.
you're
Right.
just kind of there. It's kind of cool.
That's
So
always been the never ending question is what is my musical
yeah,
sexuality?
yeah,
It's an ongoing joke.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So check it out. You won't be disappointed. And Shane, great talking to you. I am Michael J. Rock fan. Enough said.
All right.